The world knew Keanu Reeves as an actor, a man of humility, a soul who had carried pain with quiet grace. But what the world did not know was the story hidden deep inside his home, a story about his daughter. She was the light of his life, the little girl with the brightest eyes and the sweetest smile. But she had been born with a condition that left her unable to walk. For years, Keanu carried her in his arms, wheeled her through gardens, and told her that she was not broken, that she was his miracle. Yet when the cameras turned off and the applause faded, Keanu faced long nights filled with silence. He watched her sit by the window, looking at other children running and playing. He would kneel by her side and whisper, "You don't need to walk to be perfect." But in his heart, he longed for her to feel the joy of standing on her own feet, even. Once Keanu hired the best doctors, therapists, and specialists. He flew across continents searching for hope. Every door he knocked on, every hospital he entered, left him with the same answer: "We are sorry. There is no cure." His heart broke a little more each time, but he never let his daughter see his despair. Smiled, held her hand, and told her bedtime stories about brave knights, kind queens, and miracles that came when least expected. Then came the day the nanny arrived. She was not extraordinary at first glance. A simple woman, soft spoken, with a calm smile. She introduced herself gently to Keanu's daughter, sitting on the floor beside her rather than towering above. She asked about her favorite books, her favorite dreams. The little girl's eyes lit up as she spoke about wanting to climb trees, to dance, to run barefoot through grass. The nanny listened closely, her face filled with something beyond sympathy, something like determination. In the first weeks, the nanny did not push therapy or routines. Instead, she spent hours talking, laughing, and even pretending to race. With the little girl crawling across the carpet to make her giggle, Keanu watched quietly from the hallway one evening as his daughter laughed so hard she could barely breathe. It was the first time in months he had heard that kind of laughter, pure and unguarded. But one night, after tucking the girl into bed, the nanny approached Keanu. Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned with intensity. "Mr. Reeves, the doctors may have given up, but I believe your daughter can do more than they say. If you trust me, I want to try something different." Keanu was startled. He had heard every promise, every claim, every theory. Each one had ended in disappointment. But something in her voice, something in her eyes, told him this was not a false hope. "What do you mean?" he asked quietly. The nanny leaned closer. "It won't be easy. It will take patience, courage, and a kind of faith most people do not have. But I believe she can take her first step. Not tomorrow, not next week, but one day, if you are willing to let me try." Keanu's chest tightened. The thought of his daughter standing, even for a second, was a dream he had buried deep to avoid the pain. And yet here was this woman, a stranger only weeks ago, speaking with conviction that pierced through his doubts. The silence hung heavy. Between them, finally Keanu whispered, "Do it. Try anything. Just promise me one thing. Don't break her heart if it fails." The nanny placed a hand on her chest. "I will never break her. I will only teach her to believe." That night, Keanu lay awake, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of something he had almost forgotten. Hoped what he didn't know was that the nanny's shocking move in the days to come would not only change his daughter's life forever, but also his own. Asterisk, the next morning, the house felt different. Keanu noticed it the moment he stepped into the kitchen. The nanny's eyes held a fire he hadn't seen before, and his daughter looked unusually excited, as if she knew something new was about to happen. The nanny had prepared a space in the living room. She moved aside the heavy chairs and laid a thick mat across the floor. On one side, she placed a row of soft cushions, and on the other, she set small wooden blocks like stepping stones. Keanu stood quietly in the corner, his heart beating fast. "What is all this?" he asked. The nanny looked up and smiled. "This is not therapy. This is play. She will not feel pressure. She will only feel courage." His daughter giggled as the nanny told her they were going on an adventure game. "Today we are explorers," the nanny said, kneeling beside her. "And explorers always try. We don't sit and watch. We try." The little girl nodded eagerly, her eyes wide. The first exercise was simple. The nanny encouraged her to push herself forward on the mat, using her arms. At first she struggled, her small body trembling with effort. Keanu's instinct was to rush forward, to lift her, to save her from strain. But the nanny raised her hand gently, stopping him. "Let her fight," she whispered. Keanu hesitated, then stepped back. Minutes passed. The little girl's arms shook, sweat forming on her forehead. Then suddenly, with a small cry of effort, she moved forward by herself. Just a few inches, but it was hers. She looked up at her father, her face glowing with pride. "Papa, did you see?" Keanu's throat tightened as he forced a smile through his tears. "I saw, my love. I saw everything." For the next few days, the nanny repeated these games. Some involved balancing against cushions. Some were about reaching for toys placed just out of her comfort zone. Slowly, the little girl's movements grew stronger, her laughter louder, but not everything was smooth. One afternoon, the girl tried to pull herself upright against the sofa. Her arms gave way, and she collapsed onto the mat. Her eyes filled with tears, frustration spilling out. I can't do it." Keanu rushed forward, kneeling to hug her, ready to comfort. But again, the nanny stepped in, her voice firm but loving.
"Oh,
"Don't say you can't. Say you can't yet." She knelt beside the girl, brushing the hair from her face. "Every great explorer falls. Every great dreamer stumbles. What matters is that they rise again. Will you rise with me?" The girl sniffled, wiped her tears, and nodded. Slowly, she tried again. This time, she lasted longer before falling. And when she fell, she laughed instead of crying. Keanu stood back, his heart torn between pride and fear. He admired the nanny's strength, her refusal to give up. Yet deep inside, he worried. What if she gets her hopes too high and crashes, he thought. That night, he asked the nanny quietly, "You sure about this? Are you not afraid?" "We'll hurt her more." The nanny looked at him with calm eyes. "Mr. Reeves, she already hurts when she watches others live what she dreams. Is not hurting her. It is giving her a chance to fight. One day, when she stands, even for one moment, it will change her forever." Her words struck deep into Keanu's heart. He had lived years protecting his daughter from disappointment, shielding her from pain. But maybe, just maybe, the greater kindness was to let her try. To let her dream wildly, even if failure was possible. Days turned into weeks. The nanny pushed gently, but firmly, always turning therapy into games, always framing failure as a step towards success. Keanu noticed the change not just in his daughter's body, but in her spirit. She laughed more, she spoke with more confidence. She no longer whispered her wishes, she declared them. Then one evening, Keanu walked into the living room and froze. His daughter, holding tightly onto the nanny's hands, was trying to stand. Her little legs shook, her body wavered, but she was rising. Keanu's chest tightened so much he could barely breathe. The nanny glanced at him with steady eyes. She's ready to try. And in that moment, Keanu realized that the day he had dreamed of, feared, and longed for might be closer than he ever imagined. The air inside the house felt charged, as if every breath carried the weight of possibility. Keanu stood frozen near the doorway, afraid to even blink. His daughter's tiny fingers gripped the nanny's hands tightly. Her arms trembled, her legs quivered, yet her eyes glowed with a determination Keanu had never seen before. "Easy now." The nanny whispered gently, her voice calm, guiding. "Feel the floor under your feet. Trust that it can hold you, and trust yourself." Little girl drew in a shaky breath. She pressed her weight down, her legs wobbling like soft branches in the wind. Keanu's heart raced, his hands twitching to rush forward and catch her, but he held himself back. He remembered the nanny's words: she needs to try. She needs to own her victory. Slowly she rose a little higher, her knees stiff, her back bending awkwardly. For a brief second, she was upright, standing with the nanny's steadying support. Keanu gasped softly, his eyes filling with tears. "You're doing it, sweetheart. You're standing," he whispered, his voice breaking. But before he could take another step closer, her legs buckled. She fell back onto the cushions with a soft thud. Silence filled the room. Keanu's chest tightened painfully. He wanted to scoop her up and tell her she didn't need to try anymore. But before he could move, she burst into laughter. Pure, ringing laughter. "Papa, I stood. I really stood." Keanu's knees gave way as he sat on the floor, his tears falling freely now. "Yes, you did, my love. You did." The nanny smiled, quietly, but her eyes glistened too. She had seen many children give up after falls, but this girl was different. She had fire inside her, a fire that had been waiting for the right spark. The days that followed were filled with more attempts. Sometimes she managed to balance for a few seconds before collapsing. Sometimes she couldn't rise at all, her body too tired. And sometimes she laughed so hard at her own falls that Keanu couldn't help but laugh with her. But behind every laugh was a shadow. Late at night, when his daughter slept, Keanu sat with the nanny. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to watch this," he admitted quietly. "Every time she falls, I feel my heart break. I want to protect her from pain, yet I know you're right, she needs to try. But what if she never walks? What if I'm giving her hope for something that will never come?" The nanny's gaze was steady. "Hope is never wasted, Mr. Reeves. Maybe she will walk, maybe she won't. But hope gives her wings either way. It teaches her she is not helpless. It makes her believe in herself. And that belief will change her life, whether her feet move or not." Those words settled deep in Keanu's chest. He thought about his own life, the losses, the grief, the pain he had carried for years. Maybe hope was the only reason he himself had survived. Maybe that was the very gift his daughter needed most. One evening, a turning point arrived. The nanny brought in a pair of small braces to help support his daughter's legs. She explained softly, "This is not magic. It's just a tool. The magic is still inside you." The girl touched the braces nervously, but then nodded. With the braces on, she tried again. This time, when she pushed herself up, she stood longer. 5 seconds, then 8, then nearly 15. Keanu counted each one in his head, his heart hammering like a drum. Finally, her knees gave out and she fell onto the cushions. But instead of tears, she shouted joyfully, "Papa, did you see how long I stood this time?" Keanu ran to her, hugged her tightly, and whispered, "I saw everything. I'm so proud of you." That night, Keanu stood by her bed, watching her sleep peacefully, her face glowing with happiness. He whispered to himself, maybe one day she really will walk. Maybe this isn't impossible after all. But he didn't know that the nanny was planning something even more daring. A move that would challenge everything Keanu believed. Something that could either lead to the greatest moment of their lives or break them in ways they had never imagined. Asterisk. The next morning began like any other. The sun streamed through the windows, birds sang softly outside, and Keanu's daughter sat at the breakfast table humming to herself. But there was a quiet tension in the air that only the nanny seemed to notice. She carried it in her eyes, a mixture of determination and fear, as if today she was preparing for something far greater than another round of practice. After breakfast, she asked Keanu for a private word. They stepped into the hallway, away from the little girl's ears. The nanny's voice was steady, but her hands were clasped tightly in front of her. "Mr. Reeves, she is ready for more. We have played, we have built her courage. We have let her taste standing. Now it is time to take the next step, literally. I want her to try moving forward." Keanu froze. His breath caught in his throat. "You mean walking?" His voice was almost a whisper, heavy with disbelief and fear. The nanny nodded slowly. "Just one step. Maybe two. Not far, not fast. But she is ready. Her body shakes, yes, but her spirit is strong. If we wait too long, she may lose the fire she feels right now." Keanu's mind spun. The thought of his daughter trying to walk filled him with both wild hope and suffocating dread. He had dreamed of it for years, yet the fear of disappointment gnawed at him. What if she falls hard? What if it crushes her spirit? The nanny's eyes softened. Falling is not the end. Falling is part of rising. She must learn that courage means trying even when you might fall. If we shield her forever, she will never know the strength inside her. Keanu closed his eyes for a moment. His whole life he had lived protecting the people he loved, often at the cost of his own heart. But now, standing there, he realized, protection might mean letting go. He finally whispered, "All right, let's try." That afternoon, the living room transformed into a stage of hope. The mat was laid down again, cushions placed nearby. The nanny helped the girl with her braces, then crouched in front of her, holding both her hands. "Today, little explorer," she said warmly, "we are going on our first journey, just one step forward. Can you try that with me?" The little girl's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Yes, I can try," she said with determination. Keanu stood back, his heart pounding in his chest. He clasped his hands together so tightly they hurt, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. The nanny guided the girl upward. Slowly, painfully, she rose to her feet. Her legs shook, her breath came fast, but she was standing. The nanny smiled. "Lift one foot, just a little, and move it forward. I'll be right here." The girl closed her eyes for a moment, gathering courage. Then, with all the strength she could muster, she lifted her foot and placed it forward. One step. Shaky, awkward, imperfect, but a step. Keanu gasped loudly, his hands flying to his mouth. Tears blurred his vision. "You did it," the nanny exclaimed, her voice breaking with joy. The little girl looked up, her face glowing brighter than the sun. "Papa, I walked. I really walked." Keanu dropped to his knees, tears streaming freely. "Yes, my love, you did. You walked, but before." The celebration could settle. Her legs buckled. She fell hard onto the mat, her arms splaying out. Keanu leapt forward, panic surging through him. "Are you hurt?" he cried, his hands trembling as he reached for her. But the little girl only laughed. A laugh so pure it cut through Keanu's. "Fear, Papa. I fell, but I don't care. I took a step." The nanny looked at Keanu with a quiet, knowing smile. "See, she is not broken by the fall. She is lifted by the step." Keanu held his daughter close, his tears wetting her hair. For the first time in years, he felt something more powerful than grief or fear. He felt faith. Yet deep in his heart, he also knew this was just the beginning. Because if one step was possible, the journey ahead would demand even more courage, more pain, and more battles than they had ever faced. And the nanny, holding back her own emotions, knew the hardest test was still to come. The house no longer felt the same after that first step. It was as if hope had seeped into the walls, filling every corner with a new energy. Keanu's daughter woke up each morning eager to try again, her first words often being, "Papa can." "I walked today." She laughed more, she talked more. She even started planning little games around her practice sessions. But for Keanu, the joy came mixed with fear. Each time she tried to stand or move, his heart pounded with terror. He feared the day her courage might meet a wall too high to climb. One harsh failure could undo everything. Late at night, when the house was quiet, he would sit alone and whisper, "Please, let her keep her light. Don't let her break." The nanny noticed his quiet struggles. One evening after his daughter had gone to bed, she found him sitting in the living room, staring at the dark. "You're afraid she'll fall." "Too hard," she said gently. Keanu nodded, his voice hoarse. "I've lost too much in life. I cannot lose her spirit too. It would destroy me." The nanny sat across from him, her tone calm but firm. "You cannot live her battles for her, Mr. Reeves. Your love protects her, but it must also release her. You see her as fragile, but she is stronger than you know. She doesn't need a shield. She needs a chance." Keanu's eyes filled with quiet tears. Her words hurt, but they also healed. He realized she was right. His fear was not about her weakness. It was about his own wounds, his own history of loss. He had been protecting her, not just from failure, but from his own pain. The next morning, he made a choice. When she asked, "Papa, can I try walking again?" he smiled and said, "Yes, my love. Today we walk together." The nanny prepared a new challenge. Instead of just one step, She arranged 2 chairs across the mat, spaced a little apart. "Today you will walk from this chair to that one," she explained softly. "Just 2 steps, nothing more." The little girl looked nervous but determined. Keanu knelt in front of her, his voice shaking with both pride and fear. "I'll be right here, sweetheart. Every step you take, I'll see it." With the nanny's support, she stood. Her legs wobbled, but she steadied herself. She took 1 shaky step forward, then another. When she reached the 2nd chair, she collapsed into it with a burst of laughter. "I did it, Papa. I walked 2 steps." Keanu's eyes overflowed. He clapped his hands, smiling through tears. "You are my hero," he whispered. Day after day, they repeated the exercise. Sometimes she managed 2 steps, sometimes 3. Sometimes she fell hard and cried, but always with the nanny's calm encouragement. She tried again. Her spirit grew stronger, fiercer. Then one afternoon something happened that no one expected. She asked, "Papa, can I try walking to you without holding the nanny's hands?" Keanu froze. The nanny looked at him silently, waiting for his answer. His heart screamed no, but his soul whispered yes. He nodded slowly. "I can try." The nanny steadied the girl, then stepped back. Keanu knelt a few feet away, his arms open. "Come to me, my love. Just try." The girl took a breath. Her tiny body shook as she lifted 1 foot, then another. Without support, she moved forward, wobbling dangerously. Keanu's heart raced, begged him to rush forward and catch her, but he stayed still, his arms wide, his voice steady. "You can do it. I believe in you." She took 1 step, then another. Then, with a final lurch, she fell straight into his arms. Keanu caught her, hugging her tightly, tears flooding his face. "You walked to me. You really walked to me." The nanny watched quietly, her hands clasped to her chest, her own eyes shimmering. She knew this was more than just a step. It was a miracle of courage, faith, and love. But as beautiful as the moment was, it also brought a deeper truth. This journey was far from over. Because walking a few steps inside their home was one thing, facing the outside world with its doubts, judgments, and challenges would demand even greater strength. And the nanny, though proud, knew she would soon have to make an even bolder move, one that would shock Keanu, test his trust, and forever change the course of their lives. The house was alive with joy after that breakthrough. Every corner seemed to echo with laughter and hope. Keanu's daughter, once confined to her chair, now dreamed boldly. "Papa, one day I will run," she told him, with shining eyes. Those words lifted his heart, but also struck him with fear. He was proud of her courage, yet he knew the world outside was not as kind as the walls of their home. The nanny sensed his hesitation. She knew he celebrated every step, but she also knew he was terrified of what would happen when others saw her. So one evening, after Keanu tucked his daughter into bed, the nanny spoke quietly. "Mr. Reeves, it is time. She must step outside. She must show herself to the world." Keanu stiffened. Outside, his voice trembled. "She is not ready. People will stare. They will whisper. What if she falls in front of them? What if it crushes her?" The nanny looked at him steadily. "If she hides, the world will win before she even tries. But if she faces it, even if she falls, she will rise stronger. She needs to believe she is not broken. The world needs to see that too." For a long time, Keanu said nothing. He looked out the window, memories of loss weighing heavy on him, but deep inside, he knew she was right. Hiding had never healed him. Only facing the pain had taught him how to live. He finally whispered, "All right, let's do it." The next morning, the nanny prepared a quiet plan. There was a small park nearby where children often played. She suggested they take the girl there, not to run, not to perform, but just to try 1 step on the grass. Keanu's daughter was thrilled at the idea. "Papa, I want to feel the earth under my feet."
The moment came.
With the nanny's help, she stood on the edge of the park. Children stopped playing. Parents turned to look. Whispers filled the air. Keanu's chest tightened. He wanted to shield her from every eye, but he forced himself to stay calm. The Nanny knelt by the girl. "This is your stage, little explorer. Just one step. The world will see." The girl looked at her father. He nodded, his eyes wet. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm always here." She closed her eyes, breathed deeply, and lifted her foot. One shaky step, then another. The grass bent under her tiny shoes. For a moment, silence filled the park. Then, a ripple of applause broke out. Children cheered, parents clapped, some even cried. Keanu single quotes as daughter laughed through tears, her voice ringing out, "Papa, I'm walking." Keanu ran to her, scooping her up in his arms, his tears streaming openly now. "Yes, my love. You're walking. You're showing the world your courage." The nanny stood back, her heart swelling with quiet pride. She had not only helped the girl walk, she had helped her believe. From that day on, everything changed. The little girl's steps grew stronger, her laughter louder. Strangers who once whispered now spoke of her as an inspiration. And Keanu, once afraid of hope, now lived every day with gratitude, knowing he had witnessed a miracle born not from medicine, but from faith, resilience, and love. And when people asked him how it happened, he would smile softly and say, "My daughter taught me that falling is not the end. Rising is." And one brave woman reminded us both that miracles begin the moment you dare to try. The nanny's shocking move had not just changed a child's life. It had healed a father's heart and reminded the world that nothing is impossible when hope is alive. The story had begun with silence and fear. It ended with footsteps and laughter that echoed far beyond their home.